Welcome to EPG Pathshala. The module that we are going to discuss today is religious diversity. This module is written by Subra Nag from Assam University, Silchar. I am Raghuram Raju from University of Hyderabad. One way of looking at the religious diversity is to see how there is a different experience experienced by human beings in everyday lives. So diversity means a state or a quality of being different or varied. Religious diversity includes multiplicity of religious beliefs, systems, institutions, doctrines, creeds, sects that are followed by individuals in their practice of religion. So there are two kinds of differences or diversities. One kind of difference is different religions. There are different religions, like there is Hinduism, there is Christianity, there is Buddhism, there is Judaism, there is Jainism, and so on. There can be other kind of difference or diversity. For instance, within a particular religion, there can be different sects, different schools. You have within Christianity, the Catholic and Protestant groups. Within Islam, the Shias and Sunnis. Within Hinduism, there are Vaishnavites, there are Shaivites, there are Shaktas, and there are several of them. And within Buddhism, you have Hinayana and Mahayana sects of Buddhism. And another important diversity is that somebody can accept a single source, be it Vedas or Upanishads, but interpret them differently. You have different schools of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, Visishta Advaita, and several other schools who all accept the authority of Vedas and Upanishads, but come up with different versions of the same doctrine. The difference can also be seen in terms of continuity. And there is a particular religion, and then it grows in the course of time, and there is a continuity between the earlier form and the later form. The later form may be different, or at least, it can be better. So this can be seen as the growth or development of a religion. So there is a possibility where a religion is not seen as static, but as dynamic, as growing. Now, in this kind of a situation, there is a possibility of exchanging between the earlier and the later, and there is a possibility of communication. There also can be situations where the difference grows too much, and it becomes unwieldy, and then the different systems get so burdensome and they get torn apart and they fall apart, and that can lead to a kind of a separation within two important parts of a same religion. The other important point that we should note when we discuss about religious diversity is that major differences between two religions can actually begin with an individual difference. There is a group of people who are following a particular religion, and there is an individual who differs from it, and he will have or she will have his own or her own followers. So, and that can give rise to a difference there. So there are different ways of looking at these differences. Differences can be contested. So there are two different religions, and one religion contests the other religion. There is also a possibility where there are two different religions and they interact with each other and learn from each other, exchange things from each other. So what is important in these kinds of contexts of both contested or they interacted, more in the latter, is what is the common denominator where one religion is compared with the other religion. Is the common denominator that is used to make comparison neutral, or is it biased towards this religion or that religion? So it is possible that in interacting with one other religion, that is, it is possible for one religion in interacting with other religion can retain its identity and still talk to the other religion, compare and see itself in relation to other religion. There is also possibility that you can look at the other religion from your own point of view. So that is that you can look at the other religion from your own point of view. Also, you can also become part of that religion and you can exchange your views with the other views. For instance, if you look at Shankara's Advaita Vedanta closely, Shankara's major task was to refute Buddhism. Okay, but if you look at his Brahma Sutra Bhashya, commentary on the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, you will find many aspects of Buddhism that he was repudiating gets incorporated in it. So there is a dialectic between the proponent and the opponent, and the exchange, even if it is contested, can be very productive, creative and amalgamative. So when we look at different religions and different religions, sometimes what comes to our mind is to look for what is the rational justification for our own religious belief and what is the rational justification for other people's religious belief. So we can look at this in the following way, that we can become self-reflective about our own religion and look for rational justifications. We also can look at other religions and ask for what are the rational justifications of that religion. There also can be different kind of justification in the form of epistemological or epistemic justification, that one religion can provide a particular kind of epistemic justification and this can differ in the case of other religion. There can be prudential justification, practical justifications. There can be a normative justification. Some people can say that you should accept God as a normative principle, not as a theological or as a metaphysical principle, but as a normative principle. So justification for difference, is it the difference in the experience or the way of understanding or expressing or interpreting the difference? So for instance, there is a difference and you have a different kind of experience. So somebody can ask whether that religious experience is different in its experience, or is it different in the way in which I understand that experience, or is it different in the way in which I express the different, or is it different in the interpretation of that experience? For instance, one can ask a question, can we have different religious experience? Does one's own experience get mediated in experiencing the other experience? That is, I have my own religious experience, or I can have a different religious experience when I look at the other religion, which comes to mediate my own religious experience. The difference or variance between the officially ordained experience can vary with an individual's experience. For instance, that one institutionalized religion might come up with a set of religious experiences. They might list them, ordain them, establish them. And some people who belongs to that religion might differ with that set of religious experience, and that person might say, no, that is not the proper religious experience, the religious experience that he or she feels is different. For instance, this is the point that several heretics have made. They said that this is not the way you should look at God. This is not the institutional way of looking at the God, is not proper way of religious experience, experiencing the religiosity. They said that religion has to be individual centric, not institutional centric. So the other important dimension of this of negotiating two different religions, different religious experience, is the one that is proposed by Gandhi. Gandhi often said that he understands and respects other religions because of his own religiosity. So that is an important thing that comes to our mind. So there are different ways of dealing with this diversity of religious experience. In making comparisons between two religions or amongst more than two religions, in trying to find out the exchange or identity aspect of these religions, language plays a very important role. And one person who paid attention to this is the very important philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein, in his lectures on religious beliefs, has deliberated upon the matter of uniqueness of religious language to a considerable extent. He made a distinction between use theory and theory meaning, and he said that you should emphasize on the use aspect of language, and he said that the use of religious language is different from the science or the language of history. So there is a variety that surrounds the religious use of language, and Wittgenstein played a very important role in highlighting this point. In addition to the diversity between two religions and complexity surrounding it, you have several studies which looked at religion from their own subject's point of view. The religious diversity has been considered to be worth studying from various other disciplines such as cultural studies, philology, literary criticism, psychology, economics, sociology, gender studies, and several other disciplines. So now let's move into how does one view religion? How does one view religion? What is the beginning of religion? Max Muller came up with this idea that from the earliest phase of civilization, human effort to act and react upon the physical or cosmic environment opened the door for religious experience. So human beings attempt to look at the physical and the extra-physical world is one of the core ideas behind the religious experience. In the beginning, we did not have a very systematic or codified religions. The systematization of religion was a gradual process, was a subsequent process. And then with the systematization, religion also started spreading. So that's the reason why you have to look at the evolution and history of religion to understand the diversity of religious experiences or religious diversity. You have William James, who says that the concern for ultimate reality is very crucial aspect of religious life. So for him, that the ultimate reality, that we are all finite beings, but there is an urge in us to understand what is infinite, and that constitutes the religious life. You have Rudolf Otto, who comes up with the concept of holy or the numinous, and you have Paul Tillich, concept of what is called as ultimate concern. In William James' treatment of religion, there are three fundamental elements of religious experience, and they are feeling, acts, and experiences. John Hick contends that divergent religious traditions, instead of exemplifying any common essence, form a complex continuum of resemblances and differences analogous to those within a family, unquote. World religions can be categorized as theistic, such as Jewish, Christian, Islamic, Vishishtadvaitins or Vaishnavites, or non-theistic like Buddhist, Jaina, Mimamsas or Advaita. There are several overlappings, crisscrossings between one religion or the near equivalent. The process of rigid categorization too often fails in comprehending the complexity of religiosity. So that's one important thing that we have to keep in mind. While it is necessary to have the identity of a particular religion, we also should be very sensitive to the overlappings that religion has with other religions. Having talked about richness and complexity of religious diversity, there are certain problems that arise from this diversity. One important problem that comes in front of us and becomes a problem is there is difference. And mere difference is not a problem. But the problem arises when we embark on the next stage where we say that of the two things that are different from each other, one is right, the other one is wrong. Or one is superior, the other one is inferior. Then the conflict between right and wrong is at the back of the problem that arises, and that can lead to conflicts. If there are conflicts that arise out of the diversity, there are three different ways through which people sought to overcome this conflict or solve this problem. One is what is called as religious pluralism. The second one is religious exclusivism. The third one is religious relativism. All these three positions can be meaningfully defended in either interreligious or intra-religious context. Religious pluralism is a standpoint where people argued that there are plural religions and each one is good in itself. John Hick, the philosopher of religion, is one of the forerunners of this view. In India, you have those like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa or Gandhi who argued for religious pluralism. They said that all religions are equal and there is no need to bring in hierarchy between one over the other. Okay? Now, they argued that there is one God and the difference is only in the paths that we choose to arrive at that God, to reach that God. In other words, they talked about how there is one substance with different attributes. So the difference is only about attributes and not about the substance. And the other important explanation that is given is there is one reality that appears differently. So they would say that let us not quarrel about the differences in appearances because all these appearances are appearances of a reality. Now, this is the core of religious pluralism. The second one is religious exclusivism. Religious exclusivism has a very serious point when they say that my religion is true and other religions are not true. Now, there is a serious problem at a sociological level this particular standpoint takes care of. It becomes a bit antagonistic to other religions and it also can be a source of religious intolerance. Now, it also can give rise to violence. It also can further give rise to rivalry and wars. And we have several instances in the history where wars are fought because of the supremacy of one religion over the other. There is also an important point, academic point, that can be seen using an argument made by Akhil Bildami somewhere else. He argues, he gives this particular argument. What is it for one to say that he or she believes in A and finds that several people do not believe in A? Okay? Now he says that believing in A tantamounts to making other people believe in A. Because if you think that A is true, then you should also see that other people see the truth in A. Okay? How can you be contented with A being true and not do anything with those people who do not see the truth? So that is a serious problem. Now, this is not the argument that will endorse religious exclusivism, but this is the one point that one can in fact use to understand the kind of a point that can emerge from the religious exclusivism. The third important approach to deal with this religious diversity is religious relativism. There are several people who argue that truth is relative. It is relative to individuals or relative to culture, a language, time, space, or conceptual schemes. So they will say that there are parallel truths and each truth is good in itself, and there is no way you can adjudicate and decide what is an absolute truth. So the truth is relative to the schemes, frameworks that they have. But the problem with religious relativism is that if truth is relative, then it cannot avoid subjectivism, because people can then say that truth is relative to subjects. So that relativism can lead to subjectivism, which is a big problem associated with relativism. So given this problem, the best option that is envisaged by several people is religious pluralism. A religious pluralism demands that each religion respects other religions. A religion shows tolerance towards other religions. There is a simple non-interference, and a religion recognizes the autonomy of other religions. So we therefore are arguing for the case that religions can work as a cohesive force uniting people and culture together, provided it is approached constructively, cultivating tolerance and mutual respect sine qua non for that. One way to conclude this module is to recall 3 important takes on religious diversity that are available from India. Okay? The first one is by Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was asked by a Muslim friend the following question, and he writes a letter where he raises this with Gandhi. Let me read this question. You regard, says this letter writer to Gandhi, Muhammad as a prophet of God and hold him in high regard. You have even publicly spoken of him in the highest terms. Have heard and even seen reports in cold print to the effect that you have studied the Quran itself. All this, I must confess, has puzzled me. I am at a loss to understand how a person like you, with all your passion for truth and justice, who has never glossed over a single fault in Hinduism or to repudiate as unauthentic the numerous corruptions that masquerade under it, can holus bolus accept all that is there in the Quran. This is the letter written by a Muslim friend to Gandhi. The Gandhi's reply is the following. Gandhi replies, I quote, I have nowhere said that I believe literally in every word of the Quran, or for the matter of that, of any scripture in the world. But it is no business of mine to criticize the scriptures of other faiths or to point out their defects. It is and should be, however, my privilege to proclaim and practice the truths that there may be in them. But I welcome every opportunity to express my admiration for such aspects of his life as I have been able to appreciate and understand. As for things that present difficulties, I am contented to see them through the eyes of devout Muslim friends. While I try to understand them with the help of the writings of eminent Muslim expounders of Islam, It is only through such reverential approach to faith other than mine that I can realize the principles of equality of all religions. But it is my duty and right to point out the defects in Hinduism in order to purify it and keep it pure, unquote. Now you see that he refrains from commenting or criticizing other religions, whereas he takes it as his primary duty to criticize his own religion. Let me now look at how, for instance, Krishna Chandra Bhattacharya looks at religious experiences. I quote this passage from his famous essay, The Concept of Philosophy. Krishna Chandra Bhattacharya says, religious experience as consciousness of being is simple and admits of no variation within itself. There is, however, an infinite plurality of unique religious experiences. Their relation is determined by themselves and not by any external reflection. Each experience by its self-deepening gets opposed to or synthesized with other experiences. One experience may enjoy another as a stage outgrown or as in absolute conflict with it, where a third experience may emerge as adjusting them to one another. There is no possibility of systematizing them by secular reason, and insofar as they systemize themselves, they present themselves in many alternative systems. The Hegelian notion of a single and exclusive gradation of religions would appear from this point of to be intrinsically irreligious. He goes on to say, every system of religious philosophy has this distinctive theory of the spirit, metaphysics, and logic. The fundamental differences within logical theory are, as has been suggested, implicitly metaphysical. Those in metaphysics are implicitly spiritual, and those in the theory of the secular spirit are implicitly religious. Religions may indefinitely multiply and indefinitely get synthesized. So is there infinite scope for difference and synthesis in philosophical theory in general? There is no question of philosophy progressing towards a single, unanimously acceptable solution. All philosophy is systematic symbolism, and symbolism necessarily admits of alternatives. Full stop. That means that each religion is unique and admits no variation. And however, one religion come nearer to other religion, and at that time it goes away from another religion. So there is a kind of there is a very interesting way through which Bhattacharya deals with religious experience. Let me end by recalling this passage from J.N. Mohanty in his article all the problem of understanding. This is about the pilgrimage. J.N. Mohanty says, and I quote, imagine a group of people, rich and poor of various classes, coming from different cultural regions of the country, speaking different languages, not necessarily belonging to an identical religious sect, coming together at the starting points of the pilgrimage and venturing forth together on a perilous journey on foot to a common destination, to a major tirtha in India, up in the Himalayas. They come together and walk and live together for a while, a week or a month, and will go their separate ways again when the pilgrimage is over. The pilgrims walk merrily on, listening sometimes to the tales told by passer holy men, sometimes relating to each other the story of their lives, and sometimes praying, much of the time in playful exchanges and fun among themselves. The difference in the language they speak, as in other things, hardly prevent them from making themselves understood. Recognizing and respecting these differences, they yet arrive at an understanding which goes deeper than words. What is understanding among people worth if it does not take place in full awareness of our own common mortality, common yet beckoning to each of us to meet it alone in the privacy of our solitary pilgrimage? The scriptures give meaning to the pilgrimage, and the later in turn transforms a shadow mass of words into the source of meaning in life, of which now the whole purpose may be seen to lie in discovering at last what that scripture means in relation to the life to which it has given such fullness of meaning. Not until living itself is transformed into a pilgrimage, which is nothing if not living in the face of death, one's own, does scripture disclose its sovereign majesty, become truly scripture. So this gives us a different way of dealing with the religious diversity. Thank you.